Gwinnett Medical Center is now entering Peachtree Corners. Conveniently located in the heart of this thriving community, our new center offers first-rate primary care and specialty services, including cardiology, gastroenterology, neurology, OBGYN, orthopedics, 3D mammography, and X-ray. Learn more about how GMC is making industry-leading healthcare more convenient than ever at gwinnettmedicalcenter.org/PTC.
You have got to see, have seen the activation of a driverless shuttle on a living laboratory, the first of its kind in really the world, here in a city that's only a little over 7 years old.
Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life, and this show that we do once a month with City Manager, Prime Lunchtime with the City Manager, Brian Johnson. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. This is always cool to be able to have the City Manager at my table to be able to ask him the questions on a live stream that I don't think I've ever known a time where you've never answered a question.
Well, there have been times I need to find out a little bit more, but generally speaking, right, I've got to be prepared to. That's what council pays me to do, is to know all, at least know where to get the answers.
True enough. Now, this city has started about 7 years ago. And today was a great day because today was the first time we've had the Olli autonomous vehicle, two of them actually, being able to run track along that 1.5 mile Curiosity Lab track.
Well, it's interesting. So you've been here the entire duration. I have not. I've only been here a little over 3 years. But, you have got to see, have seen the activation of a driverless shuttle on a living laboratory, the first of its kind in really the world, here in a city that's only a little over 7 years old. It has to be, to a degree, as a resident, interesting to say, how did we get here so quick?
Right.
And is it a good thing? Is it, a bad thing? Is it somewhere in the middle? I oftentimes professionally am on the other end of wondering, okay, how are we doing? And in larger groups, I generally know. I've spent a lot of time talking to the community about why this is a good economic development project. But it is interesting to see what we just did a little while ago in a city this young.
It's funny because when I started doing these podcasts, it was Peachtree Corners Life on a weekly live stream basis originally on Thursday night. Part of it was because people hate change. And if you remember, the pedestrian bridge was the biggest thing. And there was so much disinformation online on the forums that I was talking to my wife. I was like, it's ridiculous. People just they talk and make comments like they don't know anything. And that's why we started the podcast. And then you were willing to do this on a once a month basis. And it's helped, I think, people understand why the city does what it does. There's no legacy city here. This was Gwinnett County. Before you came, it was called Peachtree Corners, but it was a no-cross address. But when the city started forming, and actually before the city started forming, right, you guys were thinking way ahead already. Prototype Prime was on the agenda in its infancy. And the city and Mike Mason, the mayor and city council, were willing to put the money where their interests were and where they felt the future was going to be. But there were a lot of people not willing to go along on that ride with them. They were commenting in the forums that, they're wasting millions of dollars. Why are they doing this and stuff? But you're right. Today I see the fruit of what we're doing.
Well, in defense of the residents, you have to consider we are a very unique city in that, not only are we young, in the grand scheme of things, but, we have a different service delivery model than most cities. We only have 5 city employees, despite there being hundreds of people every day that are out providing service on behalf of the city. It's just all those people are employees of third-party organizations that have some relationship with the city, contractually or intergovernmentally or not. And so when you have a unique model like ours, it's probably even more important to communicate with the residents because if not, misinformation, like you said, kind of can get out of control. But it does bring with it when when our citizenry is pretty open-minded for us to do things in a in a more unique way, as to borrow our tagline, innovative and remarkable way.
Right.
It allows us to do some things that a conventional city, especially one that has a lot of legacy costs that they've borne over the years, may have a difficult problem doing. And so I think it's a long way of saying that the governing body here, the mayor and city council, have recognized the unique advantage they have as a young city, kind of a city that doesn't realize what it can't do.
Right.
And instead of just saying, oh, yeah, we're in a unique position, and then leave it at that, they've taken advantage of it. And as a result, like you said, they've been, more progressive, more, open-minded, outside the box in the way we deliver and use technology to make the citizens' lives in the city a little bit better.
It's funny. The city is more of I think of it more of a startup as a company when I look at the way it operates. The city started out as a simple city, if you will. The original thing was that it was going to be a small city. It had a small charter. It had only 3 things that it was supposed to be doing, and people were upset with that. So then, because of SPLOST dollars, we started renovating lots of roads. Then the city, along with the county, bought the Simpsonwood Park. That was almost 300 acres. That could have been 400 homes in the middle of
pristine, residential area.
We would have lost the Prime Park. So, and now today, we're dealing with the possibility of having shuttles to be able to go to retail places, to be able to limit the amount of cars on the road. I can check if there's damage on the road, I can go to my city app now. I can report that, and within 24, 48 hours, I've seen things fixed, potholes. You couldn't do that in Brooklyn. Right. In Brooklyn, it'd be like a week later, and I'd have to call my district leader. Come on, Tony, you got to fix this road. And over here, I just fill out the app, and I'm good to go.
Right.
So it's things like that I think that people are not willing to, see that we can do a lot more. And there are some people like that. The rest of, I think, they like what they see.
And I have to spend a lot of time, as well as, some of the, members of city council, going around talking to local, community stakeholder groups, whether it's Rotary or, other groups. And yes, by and large, the community has accepted the way that we operate and the fact that we are kind of unveiling some unique technological, quality of life measures, but not everybody.
No.
There are some people who think that our money should be kept into conventional things, paving roads, patching potholes, more police officers, things like that they're just like, look, that's your conventional, expense, and you should.
But things are still handled well. I know when there was a recent incident, like I think it was about 6 months ago, there were 3 squad cars in front of a subdivision to handle it. We use Gwinnett County Police, and I've never seen a problem with the service as far as safety.
No, overall, we're very pleased with our relationship, in that intergovernmental agreement. We do think that there's an economy of scale, when we're not having to double up on things like, police chiefs, 2 police chiefs, or 2 accident reconstruction, crews. Right. Things like that. But again, that doesn't mean that there are some things that, aren't operating as well as they can be. But I do think that we have done a pretty decent job, and to our citizens' credit, it's not been all that difficult for us to connect the dots, for them to see that some of these things that are on the very forefront of, commercially available technology have either made their lives a little bit easier than they could be. And it could be simple things as, now when we have special events at the, town green, you can pull up the city app and you can find where the exact open parking spaces are at the town center. versus driving around and looking for one. Now, that's not a game changer.
No, but that's a neat
But
thing.
yeah, I was going to say, it's one of those things that we hope the city thinks, well, maybe that makes the lives of our residents a little bit easier than it would be before. But, you go from that easy of or that minimal maybe of an impact to the other end of that spectrum, and that is, our decision to create Curiosity Lab, to create this living laboratory, first of its kind, to take what was something that we're experts in, and that's infrastructure, and make it truly cutting edge, offer it up to industry to come in and test and demo. And as a result, we get activity. We've been able to show our residents that while there's not a direct correlation, because we're not charging, it's not a pay to play, we're not saying, well, we've had this many rental hours, but they have been able to see that, in this case, technology is driving people into seats at restaurants, into rooms at hotels. And we've had instances in which we've had commercial office buildings in Tech Park that have been filled. I mean, you're talking about large buildings.
Renovated, totally
60,000, 75,000 square foot buildings that have been occupied, purchased, renovated by companies who wanted to be on or close to Curiosity Lab because...
and you're right. I think that Technology Park is getting closer to the Paul Duke dream of where it needs to be. Now, having said that, right? Okay, we're let's get into the weeds a little bit.
Okay, you're right.
Okay, because now, the biggest thing that everyone talks about is privacy. Right?
Yep.
So, I asked a simple question on the Olli car, right? Are there cameras on the car? Well, of course there's cameras on the car. They're facing out because they need to be in. But there are cameras inside the car as well because security,
property damage,
and even for experimentation and stuff. So there's that. There's the town center that has its own 6 cameras that face in, that have facial recognition aspects to it. So you can count and know that you have 6,340 people on the lawn on an event. You also have the idea that is that data being held or something. Then you also have the thing that the program that you all are doing, that the city wants to do with the county and the police, where they may be cameras in front of the subdivision or within a subdivision that's either paid for by the subdivision through their property tax or added to their property tax. And those cameras are going to be out there because, heck, I know I'd want one in front of my subdivision if and that's the only entrance to it. If there was going to be a burglary, I'd like to be able to capture the car coming out. That's if they parked in the subdivision. But if they parked into the subdivision next to me, there's a camera there too, hopefully, and we can still see who did the burglary, right? So there's a lot of that going on. I mean, London is known as the city with the most cameras.
Surveillance capital, right.
Is Peachtree Corners not heading there? But you know what I'm getting at, right?
I do, and you bring up a good concern that we've heard it from the residents, and there are those who are like, wait a second, I don't really want to be under surveillance of any kind. So, there's a couple ways that I can, or a couple aspects that I can respond. And I'll start by saying, mayor and council have and will continue to consider the best ways to be respectful of data. I don't want to, and to a degree, privacy when there is, when privacy is something that can be offered. In some cases, it might not be because it could be, your image is caught in the background of something else that, you need to be. But anyway, a couple things. One is we all have to remember that, we're talking about public spaces first and foremost. So we're not talking about these going on to private property.
No, of course not.
But the view looking into private property. So an expectation of privacy in public thoroughfares should be tempered to begin with. I mean, there should be a moderate amount of privacy expectations when you're on a public street.
And you want to balance that with safety.
You do. Right. And that was so the second thing is so you could have, we're getting ready to initiate a program with the Gwinnett County Police Department for them to have access to license plate recognition cameras that we're installing in the city.
Right. So that is happening.
It is happening. And those LPR cameras, when they pick up a license plate that is part of some sort of a be on the lookout, and the level of that BOLO is high enough that it warrants Gwinnett PD, dispatching a live car right then.
Right.
Let's say an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
There's some sort of an abduction, and this car drives by and the license plate gets picked up.
Right.
Why would you not want to? So you have to consider that against somebody to say, well, I don't want my license plate to be picked up when I'm not doing anything wrong.
And they're not going to be gone after. It's
That's
really
correct.
the Amber Alert that's doing it.
There's a couple of other departments around the country that have started to initiate this program.
Right.
And I know one of the largest reasons for these license plates to come up is actually non-payment of insurance or expired tax.
Right.
And so no, there's not going to be. But regardless,
there could be.
There could be.
But
the
city has to walk through that with its citizens to say that's not something that we're going to actively do then.
That's correct. So that is correct. There's definitely not an active. There's not enough resources as it is for legitimate stuff.
No, but I think citizens want to know that it's either regulated, legislated, or an ordinance that says we will not actively look for this. Because this way, at least they feel, oh, you're telling me we're not going to look for this, but in a year from now,
could if it,
right. So you want to be able to give that comfortable level. Yeah?
Correct. And really, we want it to be, again, used, so then the video surveillance is not going to be something that somebody can just be tapped in. Although, again, expectation here, there are traffic cameras that are currently located on State Route 141, the busiest corridor in Peachtree Corners. 55,000 cars every day pass through. And you can log on real time and watch traffic going right now.
Yeah, and I've done that.
So it's not like if you get on these roadways that somebody's like, well, I don't want to. So the expectation that there's privacy, if somebody's getting really upset, you kind of just have to remind them that you're already under surveillance to a degree. You can't get away from it. ATMs are looking out, and in the background they can have parking lots.
Sure. Security
even my own house. I know, and because I've seen it. My own neighbor has a video surveillance system that one of the views across his front door is aimed towards my house. So if I'm outside playing like basketball with my son in my driveway, I'm being picked up by him, and I could be like, well, that's my private property.
Right.
Well, it is, but it's
that's almost like
secondary, tertiary type of.
Right. That's almost like a drone, where I think it's the 500-foot level. You can't go above that.
400.
Or 400 in the city. So, but 400 feet, you can see a lot of stuff going on at 400 feet.
So but you bring up, so there are some that don't like it, and I understand. And to your point, we just need to be judicious in our protection of that data to make sure that it's only being used for specific purposes, that it's not available to the public, that's only being made for the purposes of investigating or prosecuting crime, or in public safety instances in which maybe there's life or, property that's at risk.
And because data, it's cheap enough to keep a hard drive somewhere, but, at some point you're going to, 3 days later the data's gone anyway. So it's not like it's going to reside somewhere forever. And I keep thinking of the iRing and all these other phones, Simply Safe, all these other security devices that, I could be checking, same thing like, look. Yeah, Brian's in the front of his house playing basketball.
Yes.
Good. Really? Yeah.
We're past that day that you can kind of disappear off the grid anymore. But that doesn't mean that the city doesn't need to be. So you bring up a good point. All of these things come with multiple perspectives.
Yes.
And we have to be respectful of those perspectives. We have to listen to them. We have to consider them. In some cases, the result of it is us tweaking, amending what we were going to originally do. And sometimes it's, hey, we hear what you're saying. We appreciate your perspective,
Right.
but we're gonna do this anyway.
Well, the same way that if my subdivision wanted a camera in front of it, that all I need is maybe 80% of the residents to sign on to say it's okay. And the other 20 could be out of luck.
Correct.
Because life is tough. There's no such thing as 100%. But
no.
Okay.
But yeah, so, we're going to continue to, navigate the world of municipal government, trying to provide the best environment for our, for people to live, work, learn, and play.
Yeah.
We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to do our best, and we're going to definitely do it with our citizenry involved. And today was no different. We activated this autonomous shuttle, and we invited the entire city, all of our residents, to come in and hear a little bit about it, ride on it, because their, taxpayer monies had a degree of investment into Curiosity Lab, and so they ought to be a part of the process, and we ought to be transparent.
Let me ask you something. You have, at this point, everyone's happy, Sprint's in. We have 5G technology enabled along that 1.5 mile track. Actually, within
Tech Park.
So all of Tech Park has that 5G.
Correct.
Anyone can access that 5G?
Or only the Sprint customers.
Okay, so on my phone?
If you have Sprint phone, you can pull up 5G.
Okay, if my phone is enabled for 5G.
If your phone is enabled for 5G.
So I'm assuming maybe an iPhone 11 might be able to do that. But
yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I think HTC has a phone that you can now, and
So 5G at this point, and they've committed to stay there to work through what we're doing with the Curiosity Lab. They're going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And we have a contract.
Do we have a forethought of what that 5G means as far as, I think anyone that's understanding about autonomous vehicles understand that you need 5G because the latency on getting an understanding that light pole is talking to the car, that's talking to your app, that car may not stop in time if the 5G technology is not there. So I think most people would understand that autonomous vehicles can only operate at that level 5, which is the highest, with 5G technology. Right?
Yeah, essentially, yes. So although the Olli shuttle can go either way, it can do 4G LTE or 5G.
And that's partially programmed, too, to run that route, I think.
Well, yeah. So right now, most autonomous shuttles drive themselves by doing two things. It's artificial. It has a high definition 3D map that's been uploaded into its brain. And that map is what it's using to go down the corridor. And then it has LiDAR. It has a form of radar.
Okay, right.
And LiDAR is its eyes, and it's constantly searching for objects in front of it.
Right, like a pedestrian.
Or coming to the side or whatever. And then it's scrubbing it constantly against the map that it has uploaded. And if they don't check out, then it goes through a series of. So the map helps.
Okay.
Where 5G really comes in on an autonomous vehicles when these vehicles start going faster and they start interacting in the real world. And again, today's activation was a big step in that, because before today, these shuttles are really doing it in closed, isolated environments. Or if they're in the public space, they're not on a public road. It's a dedicated, where there's no interaction at all, even across their lane with human-driven automobiles. So we've kind of taken the next step in the evolution of that. But the more complicated the environment that these cars are in, the more their sensors the more their brains have to be quick.
And they're learning too.
And they're learning, and there's where the latency comes in. You do not want lag time.
No.
If you have a car that just or a person that just walked out and the signal through the wireless environment takes time for it to go back, that's one.
Right.
The other aspect of 5G is the bandwidth. And that's where you get into only 5G has bandwidth enough that it can host the Internet of Things. It can host a wireless environment like along our 1.5 miles in which every street light, talks to every other street light, talks to every car, can talk to every pedestrian's phone, can talk to the traffic signal.
It needs to be
all of that stuff is happening all at the same time. And the only way that you make that happen is if you have a really wide bandwidth where you can have all that stuff laid out. And so that's what 5G brings, that 4G LTE.
I'm almost thinking of the way my kids play their online games on Steam or some of these other things where it lags behind. Man, I swung that sword and it's like a second later it hit. You don't want that happening on the road.
Not when there's a life and death. No, you can't afford to do that.
So having the 5G in a place like that, and and hear the mayor and everyone else talk about, the possibility of moving this out to be able to, let's say, take it along a dedicated part of the road up 141 towards town center, let's say. So expanding that route to another mile or two, let's say, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, because I'm sure there has to be legislation, has to be put in place in the city also to some degree,
probably.
Right? Liability insurance, who can sue who. I mean, some of those things have to be figured out. 5G would be needed further and expanded further in the city. Is that part of the plan?
Sure.
I mean, would that be, can the whole city almost be 5G?
Sure.
Or are we talking just segments of the city?
No, it can be. I mean, again, the way...
We wouldn't want part of the city like the entertainment center and this side, and then not other sides.
The haves
of the
and the
city.
have-nots.
Yes, we wouldn't want that, right?
Well, unfortunately, there's always haves and have-nots. Yeah. Sometimes just people get something earlier than the haves get it earlier than the have-nots. Right. But no, we would not want to do that. I mean, but just remember, these kind of things. I mean, I said it before. Some of this stuff is not just at the cutting edge; it's at the bleeding edge of technology.
Yeah, sure. So
the city itself should not, and really financially cannot, be the sole funding source and support mechanism for all this. This is a public-private partnership.
Right.
It started that way. It will continue that way, and it is a partnership between the city that has some unique stuff it can offer, like infrastructure, regulatory authority, things like that.
Right.
And then we get private partners that have expertise, money, and equipment and tangible technological assets. And then they make their contribution, we make ours, and together we move this ball down the field before everybody else. Right. We just stay at the leading edge of this, but we have to do it together. And so the 5G stuff, I mean, we've got a lot of companies that, or even that we can team with for a lot of this technology.
And you know what I'm thinking too, because the city does act as a startup almost, that I could be an entrepreneur and say, you know what, can I use part of that road? Can we extend it, that 2 mile or whatever, to town center? We'll cover the cost as part of the promotion. Maybe town center covers it. There may be entrepreneurs that decide they want to be able to do certain things.
That's exactly right.
Cover those things. Or even other things, like we were talking about the street cameras, integrating those with drones that follow cars that might be under Amber Alert. And that would be able to track those.
Sure.
This also,
sky's the limit. I mean, when you're at this, so it's exciting times. But again, we can't do it without our community.
Right.
And we come with warts and all, but our community is by and large supportive of what we're doing, and we hope to continue it.
Yeah, I think they are. We have been with City Manager Brian Johnson. This has been a podcast really about smart city and what it takes to be a smart city and the things going on, especially today with Olli, that is available to the public now. So if you want to ride in this autonomous vehicle, starts today. I think it's between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m.
It is right now. We are going to change the hours so that we'd like to take advantage of the 1,000+ hotel rooms at the south end and Anderby Brewing at the north end. Okay. So we'd like to have the hours changed to where it is, we do like the lunchtime crowd, say 11 to 1:30 or so. And then they go back and they recharge their batteries and then maybe 5 to 9 or something to where they can go in so that you can, if you are a business traveler or somebody, you can get in the shuttle, go up to the brew pub.
Cool.
Be there for a little bit and take it back to the hotel.
And you can stop and you can visit this or go on it from the road.
Yep.
There's 6 Gwinnett Transit stops that it's near, right? That you can.
They're at the same location as the Gwinnett County Transit
and there's a
stops.
little sign that has a QR code that your iPhone should be able to scan, and that's the liability.
And there's a release form that you've got to fill out to get on it.
Okay.
You can do it
just fill out
over your phone, and you only have to do it once because it's then on file. But you can do it right there on your phone.
Okay.
And then you can use it as just like any other public transportation that's free of charge, but doesn't have a driver.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you listening to us. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.